So, Dungeon Master Doom has been looking at battle maps and questioned, should I use hex grids or square grids? And I've noticed that both have flaws because they aren't used correctly. So I made a video where I was thinking out loud, and I discovered how to make a map where each point a miniature moves across the map is an equal distance. Neither Paizo or WizKids has figured out how to make a battle grid where you can move an equal distance across. So they got all these crunchy rules where you are one movement normal, moving diagonal, and then you suffer a one movement point penalty if you're moving diagonal a second time, but the third time you aren't penalized, but the fourth time you are penalized, unless maybe you moved horizontally once in the middle, then you won't be penalized again, or it's horrible. And what makes it worse is they've created the character statistics where they have stable movement rates. If you don't have a battle map that uses a grid that has equal distances between spaces, you should at least maybe have a fluctuating movement stat. But I found a solution, but I'd have to redesign the movement stats a little bit if I went this far. It's a lot of... I like to fiddle with the games, and then it gets to the point to where I just don't want to play the games because I find so many flaws in the system. But I just need to buckle down and play a game, no matter how flawed the system is. Alright, well, okay, on to my mad ramblings about hex grids. Alright, well, Dungeon Master Doom has been looking at the battle maps, and I think over the years some knowledge about how to use battle maps has been lost, and I don't think Paizo or Wizards of the Coast understand how to create battle maps anymore, and their biggest flaw is somehow they got it in their minds that miniatures should be placed in the center square. And that's where their thinking has gone wrong. Once you start using the center squares, you have there's a mathematical problem, and if you have a min-maxer in your group that's into math, they will exploit this if you, as a dungeon master, aren't aware of rules that they've made which make movement on the board unnecessarily crunchy, but because they can't figure out that you don't put miniatures in the center square. Alright, well, see, now here's my measuring tool. I just got my pencil here. It's a Sakura pencil. Sakura makes great pens and pencils. Great rapidograph pens and stuff. I love Sakuras. Alright. So, if we're moving, let's say Ezra the Wizard from the center square horizontally across a square grid, he'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces horizontally at this base measurement. If I do it from the center square diagonally, the pen doesn't reach all the way across to the other end of the square. The pen doesn't go. The pen is measured for diagonal movement to keep it the same, but the pen reaches the end of a square here. I should probably use a ruler so you can try this at home, but whatever. Oh, so let's count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. The pen not only doesn't make it, but it measures even less squares. And I have just seen countless videos on YouTube where people don't use the rule to where you double your movement for every other diagonal move, which is hard to keep track of, especially if some people like to drink during games and stuff, which is cool. Do it responsibly. And I'm not drinking, but I forgot what I was talking about. I am sick. That's what I'm doing. Lots of videos right now. I'm feeling good right now. Okay. Alright. Well, anyway, so there's a flaw. People don't use the rule. You got to keep track of the one move normal, second move double when moving diagonally, and it's a mess. Now, here's the secret. My old games use hex grids. Hex grids have the same problem, but the reversed. The length is shortened if you moved horizontally on a hex map, but increased if you move diagonally on a hex map. But a hex map is better if you place your characters on the intersecting lines. What I got here, what I did was oh, can you see it? Oh, I should have made it darker. There it is. So I put a dot in the middle of a square, and I measured the distance equally and came up with the hex grid, as I reinvented the wheel there. So if you're moving a character along a hex grid from point to point instead of within a square, then you won't have the distance problem. And I think games like GURPS might have messed up how hex grids are supposed to be used properly, because GURPS has you within a hex, but they are measuring facing when you're within the hex. And the one good thing about the one good discovery on grids with D&D 3.5 is you don't really need to pay attention to what direction they're facing, and the flanking is good for that. I think flanking might be harder on a hex grid. The only problem, if I go get a dry erase map, they don't make hexes big enough for the sizes of miniatures that they create. If I did it from point to point with this size of a base, it would be covering up other dots. So I can't go down to Kinko's and make my own, or Office Depot or whatever, and make my own map and print it like I print my own paper miniatures. So it would be nice if Paizo or WizKids could actually make a map, so I wouldn't have to do all this work. It's very frustrating. If there was only money to be made in role-playing games. Ugh. But it's a hobby for fun. So I'm not sure. I could make a really good, efficient battle map. But oh, I know what I could do. I could just make the map on paper. I could print it on butcher paper or something. And then I'll just get a clear piece of plastic that I can draw on. That would be perfect. Alright. See if I can get around to doing that. Ta-da! I did it. Just thinking aloud and rambling on YouTube.